White House lied about deaths on the border, blamed Texas for it. The media bought it, but we've caught them red-handed. You'll see it coming up in a sec. Plus, why is UFC and mixed martial arts, why is UFC more popular with young men right now than the NFL? Well, we'll show you. It's because they refuse to go woke, and the NFL refuses not to go woke. Plus, Dick Durbin and Ted Cruz in an epic throwdown in the U.S. Senate. That's all coming up. It's time for me, Larry. I am sure you've seen this story. Here's how CBS News decided to report it.
Tonight, the crisis at the southern border has turned into a turf war between Texas and the White House. The Biden administration says 3 migrants drowned after Texas National Guard members physically blocked federal border agents from attempting to rescue them.
That's right. Thank you, Media Research Center, for that clip. And CBS News was not alone. They weren't the only ones. They kept repeating the same story across all media platforms. See, Texas just implemented a law that allows them to protect their borders because, well, you know, they're a state, a sovereign state, and they're allowed to regulate who goes into their state or not across their borders, and that includes the southern border. And yeah, you see the narrative that's being built here, that wild maniac Greg Abbott and Texas Republicans are letting people die because of a turf war with the Border Patrol.
Drowning of 3 migrants, a woman and 2 children, escalating tensions between the White House and the state of Texas. The White House says Texas officials in Eagle Pass prevented Border Patrol agents from providing emergency assistance to the migrants by blocking agents' access to a city park with a boat ramp. The state had recently taken control of the park earlier this week.
See, you see the unfeeling Republicans who are just so craven about politicizing the border that they're willing to let poor migrants die. And it's a mother with 2 children, by the way. Of course, if you look at most of the footage of people crossing the border, have you noticed that it's all, young men of, warlike fighting age that are crossing the border unaccompanied? But no. This, of course, they've got their story. They've got their narrative. It's a woman and 2 children who tragically died. And of course, they're using it as a political weapon. Here's Wolf Blitzer at a town hall with Ron DeSantis.
Over the weekend, and you know this, over the weekend, a woman and 2 children drowned near Eagle Pass, Texas, as they simply tried to cross the Rio Grande.
They simply tried to cross the Rio Grande. Do you like the language being used here?
After the drownings, federal authorities got a distress call about 2 more migrants in distress, but agents were physically barred by Texas authorities from entering the area.
There you go. Very compelling story. CBS, NBC, CNN, heart-wrenching, and all 3 of them cited the White House and the Biden administration as the source of the facts behind this story, right? Here's the problem. It's all a lie. 100% a lie. And they know it. The Border Patrol knew it was a lie. The Justice Department knew it was a lie. The Biden administration knew it was a lie. Yesterday at the press briefing, Jacqui Heinrich from Fox News called Karine Jean-Pierre out on the lie.
Will the administration then amend its separate statement that imply that Texas officials were responsible for the deaths of 3 migrants when, in fact, they had nothing to do with it? They had already been dead for an hour by the time Mexico told anyone in the U.S. about it. And the administration admitted as much in their court filing. They acknowledged that in their court filing, but the statement from the White House implies that Texas was responsible, and a number of outlets were forced to issue corrections and editor's notes because of that White House statement. So will the White House amend that statement?
So let's be sensitive here. 3 people died.
Oh, hold on a second. I'm going to let you finish there, Karine Jean-Pierre, but let's be sensitive here. 3 people died. Now's the time to be sensitive. They just used the death of those 3 people as a political weapon, a cudgel. They put out a statement blaming Greg Abbott and Texas Republicans. They leaked it and sent it out to all their pals in the mainstream media who dutifully saluted and repeated the lie over and over and over again. I just showed you just 3 examples, CBS, NBC, and CNN, but it was all over the place. And now if you dare to call the White House out on their lie, now you're being insensitive. Could we please stop and be sensitive about the 3 people who died here? That's really more important than, the truth and who's really responsible. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But of course, we shouldn't expect anything more from her. Here's a little bit.
3 migrants died, 2 children and a woman. That was devastating. Devastating situation, heartbreaking situation. So let's be really mindful of what we're talking about here.
Wow.
I want to take a step back and
Yeah, I bet you
just
do.
as you're talking about our statement, look, as I mentioned, a woman and 2 children died.
She's
They
just
drowned
gonna,
near.
she's just going to keep repeating that over and over again. She's been caught in a lie. She's been caught in a lie using the deaths of the woman and 2 children for political purposes. So all she's going to do is just keep repeating over and over again, you know, a woman and 2 children died. Because, by the way, that's the only part of this that's true, is that we have deaths. But it was really important for the Biden administration to blame someone. They blamed Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas. They blamed Republicans writ large for the deaths of that woman and 2 children. Who's really responsible? Well, we'll get to that in a second, but let's watch Karine Jean-Pierre continue to try to spin out of this lie.
Eagle Pass, which is, as I said, devastating, and that Texas officials blocked Border Patrol from accessing the area. That's what was happening at that time. Our statement is consistent with DOJ's filing. As the DOJ filing said, there was an ongoing emergency situation that Border Patrol was blocked from accessing. There were other migrants in the water as well. But I'm just saying there was an ongoing.
The White House statement the White House statement says that Texas officials blocked U.S. Border Patrol from attempting to provide emergency assistance.
There were other migrants in the water.
Then why wasn't that included in the statement?
There were other migrants in the water.
That's what you were referring to.
Our statement is very much consistent with DOJ filing. Anything else specific you want to know about that? I would certainly refer you to DOJ.
Yeah, real fast. Her statement is consistent with the DOJ filing. The problem is it's not consistent with the truth. It's not consistent with the truth. So we have a tragedy. It's true. We have a woman and 2 children who died trying to cross the Rio Grande. They drowned because they were told by this president, by this administration, and by this political party, the Democrats, that if they could just cross that river and make it to America, they'd be home scot-free. They would be able to live a life here. They'd be able to build a business. They'd be able to make money. They'd be able to live off government assistance. Those children would become American citizens. They could go to public schools. They wouldn't have to deal with the crime and the murder and the drugs in Mexico. If you can just make it across that river, if you can just risk your life and come to this country, we'll welcome you with open arms, and you'll be absolutely in nirvana, because that's what this party and this administration continues to communicate. It's what they've communicated since they won the election, and it's what they continue to communicate. Who's responsible for the death of this woman and these 2 children? Who's responsible? Who has blood on their hands? Who has blood on their hands from the people who have died making this trek, whether it's across the Rio Grande or across the entire country of Mexico, coming up from Honduras or Guatemala, paying tens of thousands of dollars to human traffickers and drug smugglers and coyotes? Who's responsible for the rapes of innocent women and children at the hands of these horrific, despicable scum that are responsible for human trafficking? Who's responsible for the children who are caught in sex trafficking because they've been sold the idea that they can come to America and their life will be wonderful because the border is open? Just come here and claim asylum and you can stay forever. Who's responsible for that? Joe Biden is responsible for that. Kamala Harris is responsible for that. They're the ones who have blood on their hands. Every single death of somebody trying to cross this border illegally is their fault, because they have communicated to each and every one of these desperate individuals that they're welcome and will be able to give them asylum and give them amnesty and give them whatever they want if they can just make it here. Just make it here. Even if it means trying to cross a treacherous river, you get to the other side and you're home free. That's what the Biden administration and his party has communicated to all of these people worldwide. And if they die making the trek, they have the audacity to blame Greg Abbott and Republicans in Texas who are trying to bring some kind of sanity to this chaos. How dare they? We all know who's responsible for these deaths. It's this decrepit old president and his vice president and his administration. We all know. And that's why they're lying. That's why they're trying to push the blame elsewhere. One other lie they were caught in at the White House, they're claiming that Republicans are reducing the number of border agents and trying to cut the budget down at the borders. The opposite is true, of course. H.R. 2 does not do that. What H.R. 2, the bill that they passed out of the House, says is that it compels the Biden administration to actually return to the policies under President Trump. No new law needed here. Just go back to the policies that Trump implemented. Remain in Mexico for your asylum hearings. Biden, of course, refuses to do that, but caught in this latest lie, Karine Jean-Pierre's response.
Why are you repeating this false claim that Republicans voted to reduce the number of Border Patrol agents, even though the Washington Post gave the administration 3 Pinocchios for that?
So we don't believe it's a false claim.
There you go. We don't believe it's a false claim. The Washington Post told you. It's not like the Washington Post is a big enemy to the Biden administration. For the Washington Post to reach the point where they gave them 3 Pinocchios for making this claim, that's got to tell you it's a bald-faced lie. But see, when you're Karine Jean-Pierre and you're the Biden administration and you've got the media in your back pocket, you can just say, yeah, we don't believe it's a false claim. What are you going to do about it? And if you think I'm overstating the case when I say that they've got the media in their back pocket, we just laid out the facts here. We just laid out exactly what really happened down at the border and who's really responsible for it. And let me remind you really quickly how Wolf Blitzer at CNN decided to use this lie, use this story. And again, and of course, it's at a town hall with Ron DeSantis and a Republican candidate for president, because it's an election year and it's okay to repeat lies if it means making sure that the Republicans lose.
Over the weekend, and you know this, over the weekend, a woman and 2 children drowned near Eagle Pass, Texas, as they simply tried to cross the Rio Grande.
When you're the Biden administration and you know that Wolf and Nora and all the other anchors out there are just going to repeat your lies as if it's fact, boy, you've got a really easy job ahead of you. And the one time you actually get challenged, when you're actually called out on your lies, listen, you can do what Karine Jean-Pierre just did, which is, yeah, we think it's true. And there you go. It's over. No questions asked. Boy, it's good to be in their position, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I'm hyped up about the NFL right now, mostly because my beloved Detroit Lions, do you get the color scheme here? Detroit Lions, True Grit. The Detroit Lions have defied their history, and they've actually made it to the second round of the playoffs. They've never been to a Super Bowl. It's exciting if you're from Detroit like I am. It's exciting for anyone who likes to root for the underdog. But I'm kind of standing alone right now. A lot of people are sick and tired of the NFL. Why? Well, I'll give you a couple of quick examples here. Here's the new head coach of the New England Patriots at his first press conference yesterday. This is Jared Mayo speaking to the press.
I do see color because I believe if you don't see color, you can't see racism. And whatever happens, black, white, disabled person, I've always, even someone with disabilities, I always, for the most part, people are like, when they're young, they kind of make the spot hot. Younger people know what that means. But what I would say is, no, I want you to be able to go up to those people and really understand those people. So it goes back to whatever it is, black, white, yellow, it really doesn't matter, but it does matter so we can try to fix the problem.
What's that got to do with the problem they've had on their offensive line and the fact that their quarterback can't hit any of the wide receivers even when they're open? And what's it got to do with their defense failing against the run, especially when the Buffalo Bills are in town? This is why people are sick and tired of the NFL, because they want to watch a football game. And when the head coach of the winningest football team in the last 20 years has his very first day meeting the press, and he goes out of his way to say,
I do see color because I believe if you don't see color, you can't see racism.
Yeah, just 2 days after Martin Luther King Day, where he's imploring the press to judge his players on the color of their skin, not the quality of their play. Yeah, we're sick and tired of that. That's Exhibit A. How about Exhibit B? Here's how NBC covered a great story, a feel-good story out of the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud, rookie quarterback, has an unbelievable season and wins a playoff game for the Houston Texans, a team that was, well, forgive me, like the Detroit Lions going into this year. They were awful. And after the game, after the stunning victory, take a look at what he said live on NBC Sports, on the left-hand side of their screen, and then look at how NBC Sports on the right-hand side of the screen actually presented it later to the social media audience.
In your first NFL season and a record-setting performance for you, what does this moment mean?
I mean, it's been amazing being in this city for as short as I've been.
Did you notice that there was a little jump edit there, right? She asked the question, and then they have a bit of an edit that goes right to him saying, I mean, it's been wonderful to be in the city, right? So what did they edit out? Let's watch what they edited out.
First and foremost, I just want to give all glory and praise to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's been amazing being.
They edited out his statement where he gives love and praise to his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now it snuck through on the live feed. But when NBC Sports had the opportunity to edit it for public consumption later, they made sure to get rid of that.
First NFL season and a record-setting performance for you. What does this moment mean?
I mean, it's been amazing being in this city for as short as I've been. But first and foremost, I just want to give all glory and praise to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's been amazing.
Wow. Wow, NBC Sports. And you know what? These two stories with the NFL actually sort of tie together, if I may, because for most sports fans, if we can see a young quarterback, a young player in the league who has worked his tail off and succeeded at the highest level, actually take that moment to show some humility, to show some grace and some charity, to actually stop everything and not pat himself on the back and talk himself up, but actually humbly express his love for his God, for his Savior. That actually makes us like the NFL more. And it doesn't matter whether it's a black player or a white player. And this is a moment where here's a young black man expressing his love and his affection for his Savior, Jesus Christ. And here I'm a white man, and I would say the same thing. This is something we have in common that transcends race. And NBC Sports edits it out, removes it, pulls that aside. And it goes right back to the coach saying, well, yeah, you know, race is important. Is it? I guess. But there's some things that are more important, aren't there? Some things that can bring us together. Like, if you think race is important and you're a black man and I'm a white man, and it's critical that we look at race, well, you're emphasizing something that we will never be able to resolve, because I will never be able to be a black man and you will never be able to be a white man. So if you want to emphasize that and focus on that and draw attention to it and obsess over it, NFL, you're setting us up for failure, because it's clearly something that we'll never be able to resolve between the two of us. We will never have our skin color in common. I'm sorry. It's just a scientific reality. But what will we have in common? Our values, our principles, the love for our Lord and Savior. And here's a moment where we actually have that thing that we can bond over, and NBC Sports goes out of their way to deliberately kill it. And you wonder why we're divided. And you wonder why people are getting sick and tired of these sports and the way the networks present them to us. Before we leave this topic, and I don't want to leave it thinking that everything about the NFL is wrong, because I do actually love football. And there are some great people, some great coaches in the NFL, and they deserve their due. Earlier this year, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, was asked a question. He was squaring off against the Pittsburgh Steelers, coached by a fellow black coach, Mike Tomlin. So he was asked about the significance of two black head coaches playing each other. And unlike your new Jared Mayo head coach up in New England, Todd Bowles wasn't having any of that crap, and he handled it beautifully.
You and Mike Tomlin are two of the few black head coaches in the league. I wonder what your relationship was like with them and your thoughts on Steve Wilks joining that fold.
I have a very good relationship with Tomlin. We don't look at what color we are when we coach against each other. We just know each other. I have a lot of very good white friends that coach in this league as well, and I don't think it's a big deal as far as us coaching against each other. I think it's normal. Wilks got an opportunity to do a good job. Hopefully he does it. And we coach ball. We don't look at color.
But you also understand that representation matters too, right? And that when young aspiring coaches or even football players, they see you guys, they see someone that looks like them, maybe grew up like them, that has to mean something.
Well, when you say you see you guys and look like them and grow up like them, means that we're oddballs to begin with. And I think the minute you guys stop making a big deal about it, everybody else will as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Representation is important. You guys, this and that. This is the amazing thing about professional athletes, especially football players. If you've ever been around football players that have performed at the highest level, either at the highest level in college or in the pros, you realize that the whole race thing goes away real fast. You're either good or you're not. You're either going to block when you're supposed to block and keep me from getting my neck broken, or you're not. And I don't care what color you are. You got to do your job on the football field. We're all playing shoulder to shoulder. And if you don't do your job, then we're going to lose. And even worse, I'm going to get hurt. That's how football players are. They don't care about race. That's why it's so heartbreaking to see the Colin Kaepernick crap and the taking the knee crap and the slogans on the end zones and the slogans on the back of the helmet crap. It's what's killing the league. It's what's driving away the audience. So when you see Todd Bowles, the head coach of Tampa Bay, do this, it's fantastic. We want more of that. In fact, Todd Bowles had his own moment this week as well in the press conference. He's playing the Detroit Lions, my team, on this Sunday, and he was asked by a reporter about how the cold weather in Detroit is going to affect his team coming up from Florida.
Coach, looking forward towards Detroit. The weather has been a factor in some of the playoff games, even for the most prepared teams. Today, it's 13 in Detroit, which doesn't compare to some of the temperatures we tend to drop to. Any special plans to acclimate the team to not only endure, but perform in those kind of frigid temperatures should you face them in Detroit?
You do know we play indoors, right? They got a dome. I don't. No, nothing planned. We're indoors, and we only have to be outside for 20 seconds, getting off the bus, going under the thing, so we'll be okay.
That is just the most beautiful response. Yeah, we play indoors, right? I mean, there is the 20 seconds where we're walking off the bus, but I have not planned anything special for that. I think we're going to be okay. By the way, if I could ask you a question. Which DEI box did you check off to get your job? That would have been great. Which brings us to the opposite side of this equation, the UFC, which is enjoying huge success right now, especially with younger viewers, younger male viewers. You look at their press conference, and specifically the press conference from one of their champions, Sean Strickland, and it's the opposite of politically correct. It's the opposite of woke. And in its own way, it's kind of refreshing.
So they let you into Canada. Oh, this guy. Yeah, man. Here. It was actually really easy to get in here. Really easy. Yeah.
Sean, Neil Davidson from the Canadian Press. Welcome to Canada.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah. The Canadian Press, man. Were you a COVID bank account stealer too? Were you on board with that?
No.
Are you left wing or right wing? Were you a Trudeau? We got one of the commies with a press. We got to know where this man stands. Were you non-biased?
I think I'll ask the questions here.
Oh, he thinks he'll ask. Oh, we no. Maybe I should just pass on this motherfucker. He's gonna go back. He's gonna go back and give my bank account information to Trudeau.
All
Well,
right. Listen, the language might be a bit much for you, and I get it. I mean, this guy, he's he's an athlete whose sole job is to get inside a cage and beat the hell out of somebody who's trying to beat the hell out of him. Okay, he's kind of unpolished, right? He is who he is. But isn't there something kind of refreshing when you actually call out the reporters, when you know exactly who they are and what their agenda is, and you get there before they do? Oh, and by the way, Sean Strickland is just getting started.
Probably a good bank account. I wanted to ask you about what life has been like as a champion. I'm sure there have been a lot of pluses, but maybe a few minuses. You're in the public eye now. What has it been like in the short time since you've had the belt?
Oh, man. Guys, nothing changes, man. You go to Walmart, you get recognized more, but like, my bank account's a little bigger. I mean, it's a little bigger. It's not much bigger. It was a little bigger. I'm not going to retire after this one, win or lose, I'm not going to go lay in a bathtub with flower petals, but I don't know, man. It's like, do you guys think that you get a belt and like everything changes? Like, what do you think happens? Like, I get a belt and everything, like all of a sudden, like my made of gold. Like, what do you guys think happens? I get like, what do you think? Nothing changes. I'm still the same asshole. I just have the metal. I'm sure it's not even gold. I just have a metal gold-plated belt in front of me.
Hey, Sean, over here. I saw you train with Johnny Eblin.
Oh, you're the Canadian. That's right. You're not a dirty liberal, though. I've known you for a while. You don't ruin our friendship. Are you a liberal?
I'm not a liberal. No.
Okay.
I didn't vote for Trudeau. Johnny Eblin. What was it like getting a train with?
Wait, hold on. I do love that he identified the way he says Canadian. Oh, here's another Canadian, if you know what I mean. We're actually very popular in Canada. This show is. We've been tracking the zip codes on the YouTube views because we've been highlighting Pierre Poilievre. I said it right, didn't I? Oh my gosh. But I love this guy uses Canadian like a derogatory term. Like it's one of the other four-letter words that he's been saying. And then this has to be a new thing for athletes, for politicians. Whenever somebody asks a question, they should just say, "Wait, are you a liberal?" They should just ask that. And I love the reporter. I didn't vote for Trudeau. Okay, go ahead.
Say you're liberal for Trudeau.
No. I said I did not vote for Trudeau.
Oh, there we go. This guy's the man. This not the guy. This guy's for the opposition, man. Who gave this guy a press badge? And like, you look at me and I'm an asshole. I'm making fun of this liberal, like, no offense, man. I mean,
No
I guess we need liberals, kind of, maybe not. But you look at me and I say hard like I make fun of my co-main event. I say hard I'm like, oh, Sean, I'm not an asshole. And I say everything. I'm just saying what you're thinking.
I did want to ask, you're in Toronto. Welcome. Glad to hear it. It's been great.
Are you Canadian?
Of course I am.
Are you part of the opposition? Are you?
I don't know how to phrase that.
You got like, yeah.
Well, I did want to ask.
Did you vote for Trudeau?
I'm not going to say.
And let me tell you something right.
That's a yes. That's a yes. By the way, this is the gold exchange right here. This is the one that we've been waiting for. But I do love that. Did you vote for Trudeau? I'm not going to say. Well, you just said, dude. All right.
Right now, if a man says he's not going to say, like, if you ask him, did you vote for Biden? He's like, well, I'm not going to say. That's none of your business. He voted for Biden. So, hey.
John, I'm glad you've had great experiences.
So this is what I'm talking about, you guys. The enemy of Canada.
Sure.
All right.
That's what it's got to be. It's got to be. We've got a pretty supportive gay and lesbian community in this city. I did want to ask you about something you wrote a couple of years ago. You said, if I had a gay son, I would think I'd...
Oh, look, another. I'm saying to you, the swamp, you guys, the swamp.
You become a champion, you become a star, and someone...
Let me ask you something. Are you gay?
Have you had the chance to interact with a more diverse...
Are you... Let me know. Are you gay?
Can I get an answer?
Well, no, I'm asking. This is a part of... Are you a gay man?
I'm an ally of the community.
Okay. If you had a son and he was like, you had a son, he was gay, you'd be like, oh man, you don't want a grandkid?
No problem with it.
Oh man, well, dude, you're a weak man, dude. You're part of the problem. You elected Justin Trudeau. Like, when he sees the bank accounts, like, you're just pathetic. And the fact that you have no backbone and has he shut down your country and seized bank accounts, you ask me some stupid like that, go yourself. Move the on, man.
I feel like that doesn't really answer the question, but I did want to ask also things you said about the trans community. You said this past October when they announced the Bud Light sponsorship that you'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, they'll have to accept me or denounce me when they know what, and will know what they stand for. Are you?
This guy's like, this Canadian's not that Canadian.
Are you still going to use your fight time to kind of speak on that?
Here's
By the way, I just want to point out for those of you who are watching this and observing, this is also a blatant attempt by this reporter to try to get Sean Strickland canceled, because you see Bud Light is now a major sponsor for UFC. You may have saw that news about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, where the CEO of UFC said, yeah, fine, we'll take Bud Light's money. And so he's specifically trying to draw a wedge here and get this guy into trouble. And so now let's see how politically correct Sean Strickland decides to be here. Let's see if he's worried about angering the powers that be at UFC by actually saying that, yeah, Bud Light's got a problem because of Dylan Mulvaney. Let's see.
Here's the thing about Bud Light. Here's the thing about Bud Light. 10 years ago, to be trans was a mental illness. And now all of a sudden, people like you have weaseled your way into the world. You are an infection. You are the definition of weakness. Everything that is wrong with the world is because of you. And the best thing is the world's not buying it. The world's not buying your bullshit you're peddling. The world is not saying, you know what? You're right. Chicks have. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders. I don't want my kids being taught about, who they could in school. I don't want my kids being taught about, their sexual preference. Like, dude, this guy is the enemy. You want to look at the enemy to our world? It's that motherfucker right there, asking these stupid questions. Sorry, I told the UFC I was being nicer. Lance, am I still good with this? Did I cross any lines? A little. What the? I didn't say the F word.
All right. I think we had enough. I think we've had enough. Listen, I'm not going to suggest that this is some sort of master class in how to deal with the hostile media, that other people, Republicans, politicians should sort of follow the lead. I don't think you need to go that hard. But I think keeping it real and actually calling out the people who are asking you questions for the agenda that they're obviously trying to inject into the narrative, like creating the narrative and pushing their own narrative through their questions. It's obvious what they're trying to do. Vivek Ramaswamy was brilliant at figuring it out and pointing it out and turning the tables on the media and calling them out on it. And I think that there is a way to do it, because this is where we are now. This is exactly where we are. And the media, they're not trying to get answers to questions so that they can inform their readers or their viewers or their listeners. They're trying to change our society. And if somebody like Sean Strickland is on the wrong side of an issue, they're trying to destroy their lives. And there is something cathartic to watch a man who just doesn't give a crap. If I were Sean Strickland, I would have used a word other than crap. All right, enough fun. Now let's move to some serious stuff over in the United States Senate. Ted Cruz, one of our favorite conservatives in that body, was challenged by Dick Durbin in the most horrendous, offensive, disgusting way. And this kind of thing might work for Dick Durbin when he's dealing with some other senator, but it ain't going to work with Ted Cruz. Compared to Ted Cruz, Dick Durbin is a mental midget. Compared to me, Dick Durbin is a mental midget. So compared to Ted Cruz, it ain't even close. Let's watch.
Think of one Jewish organization in America that you might turn to ask, what do you think? Is this man's background or statements anti-Semitic? I think it might be the Anti-Defamation League. ADL. We all know them. They've been around a long, long time.
Yeah, they have. And as you know from watching this program, the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, had a stalwart, sterling, perfect reputation right up until the moment they hired their current CEO, who used to work in the Obama White House. He has politicized the ADL. The Anti-Defamation League is just this short of being the Southern Poverty Law Center at this point. They're like Media Matters. They use charges of anti-Semitism and racism and homophobia as a political weapon to help the left. It's not about anti-defamation anymore, sadly. In fact, Mr. Greenblatt, the new head of the ADL, he sort of learned that he's been walking down the wrong path with the wrong people after the October 7th terror attacks. You remember, he actually found out and recognized, wait a second, my fellow leftists are actually anti-Semitic as well. So maybe he's starting to change the ADL's approach, but what Dick Durbin's about to do by citing this despicable organization, or at least despicable recently, is one for the books. Watch.
Let me read the letter that they wrote to this committee and every member after the questioning, which you've just heard, and similar questions from other Republican nominees. As the leading anti-hate organization in the world, whose mission is to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and treatment for all, ADL is compelled to speak out about the inappropriate and prejudicial treatment of Adil Abdul Mangi, a nominee for U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, during the Judiciary Committee hearing on December 13th, 2023. Berating the first American Muslim federal appellate judicial nominee with endless questions that appear to have been motivated by bias toward his religions is profoundly wrong. Hate, bias, and bigotry have no place in government, especially in the hallowed halls of Congress.
So you see what he's doing here. The ADL sent us this letter, and I'm going to read it out loud here because Republicans on this committee asking questions of the first Muslim American nominated to the court. It's clearly anti-Muslim hate that was being displayed here, right? This is what Dick Durbin is currently, as you're seeing it, accusing his fellow senators of being bigots, anti-Muslim bigots. Just wait till Ted Cruz jumps in here.
When nominees approach a congressional hearing, their religion, heritage, race, gender, or any other protected identity characteristic should not be the subject for political fodder. This was an attempt to create controversy where it does not exist, the ADL writes. ADL urges leaders to refrain from fueling discrimination and hate and urges the Senate to offer Mr. Mangi a fair vote based on his qualifications and fitness. Let me also report, if I can, that at the end of his questioning by Senator Cruz, I asked Mr. Mangi if he would want to give a complete answer. Here is what he said about the incident involved, the event that has been highlighted over and over again. I'll answer your question very directly, Senator Cruz. I will condemn without equivocation any terrorism, any terrorist, or any act of terrorism, or any defense of any act of terrorism. And this event, I don't know this event, Mr. Mangi said. I don't know anything about this event or who these people are. I've never heard of them. If someone on there is a terrorist, I condemn them. He said that under oath unequivocally. Did you hear that in the response by Senator Cruz? You did not, I'm sure. And so it comes down to the bottom line. Do we have the courage to stand up and say this was wrong, the way this man's been treated? Do we have the courage to say that assuming that everyone of the Muslim faith in America is a suspect terrorist or anti-Semitic? I hope we do. Senator Lee?
Mr. Chairman, I deserve a right to respond to that.
Well, you'll decide that, but I'll decide Senator
Well,
Lee's
you've
right.
impugned my character, and you made an accusation
I read
that was a vicious lie. I'm going to quote from you what you said about me. You said that I had just asked a question, and here's a quote from you, Mr. Chairman, quote, that I'd said he is likely to be anti-Semitic or a terrorist because he is Muslim. Now, you have just impugned my character by making a false accusation, and I will say it is disgraceful. Did you respond to any of the substance of what I said? No. You just attacked me and called me a bigot, and you responded by stating deliberate falsehoods. You said he would be the first Muslim. Well, you know what? I understand. Excuse me. I have a right to defend myself when you impugn my character in a way that is a new low for this committee. You did not dispute any of the facts I said about the organization, that he was an advisor of, he was a donor of, he raised money for. Instead, you said he'd be the first Muslim on the federal court. Well, no, that actually is not correct. And in fact, Mr. Chairman, in fact,
judge.
So the Democrats don't want to defend the substance. So now they're screaming Islamophobia. And I understand playing the race card when anyone disagrees with the Democrats, they scream
by
racist.
the ADL letter.
But
Senator Lee,
I'm going to defend myself because under the Senate rules, you have impugned my character in a way that is blatantly false. And let's just respond with facts, with substance, rather than invective. Just recently, Zahid Qureshi was nominated by President Biden, was confirmed by the Senate. Like Mangi, Qureshi is a Pakistani American. He's a Muslim, and he was nominated to serve the people of New Jersey. However, unlike Mangi, he doesn't have association with a radical anti-Semitic group. He doesn't have association with whitewashing terrorism. Rather, Kouachi served in the army. He was deployed twice to Iraq. He worked for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and he served as a federal prosecutor. And he received 83 votes in the United States Senate for confirmation, the second most under Joe Biden, second only to a nominee from Texas, whom John Cornyn and I recommended. And so it is not the fact that Mr. Mangi is a Muslim that is his problem. It is the fact that his record is extreme. And by the way, if you want to look to Jewish organizations, the Zionist Organization of America has submitted a letter to this committee opposing the nomination. The Coalition for Jewish Values has submitted a letter to this committee opposing the nomination. Stop Anti-Semitism, a nonpartisan organization, has voiced their concerns with Mr. Mangi's affiliation. I want to introduce into the record, I ask unanimous consent to introduce into a record an article from the New York Post entitled "Biden Judicial Nominee Draws Scrutiny Over Ties to Controversial 9/11 Memorial Event." I responded with substance and fact, and you responded with insults and invective that ignored the substance that Mr. Mangi deliberately associated with a consistently anti-Semitic organization, and yet Democrats are perfectly happy for him to be a federal judge.
I stand by the statement that I read into the record from ADL, and I also stand by
I quote from you was not from ADL.
I stand by the record that I read it into the record, the statement from ADL, and I also stand by what was said under oath by Mr. Mangi after you finished trying to associate him with this organization, that he had no connection with it.
Did you just say he had no connection with this organization? Is that seriously what you said in this hearing? He was on the board of advisors, he was a donor and raised money for him, and you just said he has no connection with him?
See, you twist this situation.
Mr. Chairman, you just said he has no connection with this organization. Is that your view and the view of Senate Democrats?
Read his statement to you.
Is that your view, that he had no connection with this organization?
Senator Lee.
Okay, you're refusing to answer because it's obviously indefensible and false.
Senator Lee.
That's beautiful. And that's why we need Ted Cruz on that wall. We love having Ted Cruz on that wall. And Dick Durbin, as I said, is a mental midget. He can't stand up to it. He hid behind the ADL, and he hid behind, well, I just read his statement. Okay, but you just said it. I'll read his statement. Oh, does that mean you believe it? You'll read a statement that you didn't check out and vet yourself? It's fantastic. It's brilliant. And it's typical. We've gone well beyond guilt by association. It's racist by association. If this group says that you're racist, then I'll read this group's statement so I can call you racist without actually calling you racist. By the way, ADL, Anti-Defamation League, bending over backwards to protect this guy who has got obvious affiliations to these groups, saying, well, if you condemn him, it's because you're anti-Muslim, because he's the first Muslim American, whatever. Where was the ADL when Dianne Feinstein accused Amy Coney Barrett of being too Catholic to be on the bench? Remember that? She said, well, the dogma is strong with this one. Dogma, that's quite a word to use. Because dogma seems to suggest a papist, the Latin Church, That's what Dianne Feinstein said about Amy Coney Barrett. The dogma is strong with this one. And by the way, where was the ADL when Bernie Sanders went after Trump's nominee to the Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought, when he attacked Russ Vought for being a Bible-believing Christian and saying so in one of his college papers? You see, the religious test is palpable when the left thinks you're a little bit too much in love with Jesus. But the second Ted Cruz says, not a problem with you being Muslim, but why are you affiliated with all of these groups that are full of hate? Suddenly now you're guilty of Islamophobia. We see right through you. All right, another story, this time coming out of the House of Representatives yesterday. Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, uncovered a stunning, startling, despicable scandal. The federal government was targeting conservatives, specifically with financial institutions, if you use language like Trump or Make America Great, or, well, I'll let him explain it during this appearance with Sean Hannity.
Congressman, sorry to ask the selfish question first, but I feel my privacy has already been invaded. It's why I've not had an email account for years and years and years, because, it seems like, the government's perfectly fine releasing my private text messages with Paul Manafort, my private text messages with people that work for the government, my private text messages on January 6th. So I don't really have privacy. How are they trying to? They were censoring me. Our government was involved in this. Do I have any recourse for this? Legal
well,
recourse?
we've introduced legislation, Senator Paul and I, that would give you some recourse and would hold these people accountable. So that's a legislative remedy that we're pursuing. But here's the real takeaway: the censorship industrial complex was bigger than we thought. It wasn't just big government working with big tech to limit your speech and limit Twitter or tweet and post on Facebook. It was big government, big universities, and big tech all working together to limit speech. And it was disproportionately, as you listed off all those conservatives, disproportionately targeting conservatives. Molly Hemingway, Sean Hannity, President Trump, members of Congress. You can go down the list. That's who they went after. And here's the kicker. It was all true stuff. Or some cases it was satire. It was a joke. But it was all true. And yet they went after it in this organized fashion where they limited how the reach it would have, the visibility filtering they did, and they took things down. That's how egregious this was.
Let's turn now to Jim Jordan's Twitter feed yesterday, where he acknowledged and put out a letter specifically about the federal government and these financial institutions, as I mentioned. We now know the federal government flagged terms like MAGA and Trump to financial institutions if Americans completed transactions using those terms. What was also flagged, if you bought a religious text like a Bible, I just bought a Bible yesterday. Am I on some list now? Yeah, if you bought a religious text like a Bible or shopped at Bass Pro Shop, the federal government flagged your activities. Let's see if you can see this letter. I'll read it to you. To Mr. Noah Bishop, AML officer, Plaid Incorporated, the company on the Committee on the Judiciary, the Select Committee of the Weaponization of the Federal Government, conducting an oversight of the federal law enforcement receipt of information about American citizens without legal process and its engagement with the private sector. Upon the documents obtained by the committee and the select subcommittee, we believe that you, as the former director of the Office of Stakeholder Integration and Engagement in the Strategic Operations Division of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, that would be FinCEN. That right there is an example that our federal government is way too big, that we have an agency with that name. Possesses information necessary for our oversight. We ask that you appear for a transcribed interview. Let's just jump right down here. The committee and select subcommittee have obtained documents indicating that following January 6, 2021, FinCEN distributed materials to financial institutions that, among other things, outline the typologies of various persons of interest and provide financial institutions suggested search terms and merchant category codes for identifying transactions on behalf of federal law enforcement. These materials include a document recommending the use of generic terms like Trump and MAGA, and search Zelle payment messages, as well as prior FinCEN analysis of lone actor homegrown violent extremism indicators. In other words, if you purchase something and utilize Zelle or Venmo or some other money transferring software or app, and you were purchasing something that had the word MAGA in it or Trump in it, you got flagged and that transaction got extra scrutiny. They're treating you like you're Al-Qaeda. I know I'm going to sound naive. And I know I'm going to sound like, the Reagan Republican that I am. Morning in America, shining city on a hill, believing in America's greatness that I came of age with as a young Reaganite, very young. But I truly, truly never thought that the agencies of our federal government would, with such gusto, be turned against the American people. And I want to be clear about something here, because I don't want to overstate the case. But you look at what we've learned about the FBI investigating people if they go to traditional Latin Mass, or if they're an angry parent that goes to a school board meeting. And you learn about agencies advising banks to give extra scrutiny to financial transactions that use the words MAGA or Trump, or if they're purchases from Bass Pro Shops or religious texts and literatures. Let's be clear here. Please listen to my words precisely. Every single action like this that is shot through the law enforcement powers of the federal government, FBI, DOJ, financial institutions backed by the Justice Department, every single one of these actions is backed up with the implied threat of violence. Do you hear what I'm saying? You see, when the FBI or a federal law enforcement officer of any kind reaches out to you and asks to question you or asks to detain you or wants to bring you in for one reason or another, if you refuse to comply, they have the right to use violence against you, right? That's sort of baked in the cake. They carry a badge, they carry a gun. You're supposed to follow their lawful orders, and if you don't, they can hurt you. So when they do things like this, the message is clearly sent to the American people that the guns that we pay for with our tax dollars are directed right back at us. They see us as the criminals. They see us as the problem. They see us, when they do things like this, as the enemy. And yet at the same time, they warn that if Donald Trump is allowed to be on the ballot, then authoritarianism will make its way into the federal government. Are they listening to themselves? Who in the hell are the authoritarians here? Seriously. This is a very important year with a very important election, and I hope that you're paying attention. The fact that you're watching tells me that you are, and we appreciate it very much. We appreciate all the support you give to all the town hall sites, whether it's Town Hall or Hot Air or PJ Media or Red State or Bearing Arms or Twitchy. We so appreciate it, and we want to continue to deliver for you. We got to be together here. We got to stick together, and we got to keep this flow of information going right up until Election Day. We're not going anywhere, and I hope you're not either. Thanks for watching today. My name's Larry O'Connor. Please call me Larry.